call the meeting, assuming that Andrew will check in here in a few minutes, so we will have a quorum. Lisa, could we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Mr. Haw,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson, Mr. Gentili, Mr. Suda,
Yes.
Mr. Dant,
Here.
Ms. Kaminsky, Ms. Goodman.
Mr. Gentili's here. I'm just trying to get off mute.
Okay.
Andrew, was that you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, good.
Are those that on Zoom, are you seeing us?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that it's working both ways, because we can see you when you talk. I just want to make sure you can see us.
Good picture this morning, Jeff. Okay. Everyone has gotten a copy of the agenda and hopefully has had a chance to review it. Does anybody have any comments, changes to it, additions?
I got mine in the mail.
Okay. You want to read this for a minute, Phil? And,
I looked at it.
oh, you got one up there. You
I
want?
looked at it, but I didn't get it in the mail like I typically do.
Oh, you didn't get it off
Yes.
the computer.
I will apologize for that. Susan was in charge and didn't realize they were also mailed out. So,
If you don't have any changes, Jerry, I will make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay. Do I hear a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay.
who was the second?
Phil was the second, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You need to vote on it.
Yeah, we need to vote on that. So let's do a
Okay.
roll call for that.
No, all in favor.
Okay, we can do all in favor. I didn't know if she can pick up everybody's in favor of. But all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approval, motion for approval approved. Public comment, no public comment that I
Well,
can
unless
see.
anyone from Cape Air wanted to speak, they are on.
Okay. Hello, Cape Air.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Andrew Bonney. I see that we're also down on the agenda item number 7, so I can make remarks
Right.
now or later at your preference.
We'll go forward. We've got a couple items here, and then we'll let you pop in probably in about 10 to 15 minutes at the most. Will that work for you?
That'll be fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, everybody is moving on to approval of October 18, 2021 minutes, meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review that, had a chance to look at it and review it?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes as presented.
Okay, do I hear a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Andrew. Lisa, did you get that?
Yep.
Okay. Those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion approved. Next item on the agenda is the October 21 accounts payable. I hope everyone has gotten a copy of that. And Phil, you didn't get a copy of that either, did you?
I got it on email, but I don't have it,
Okay, okay. Everybody has had a chance to review it. Any comments? I've had a chance to look at it also, and I just was gonna note, it looks like we've had a fair amount of expenses in October. And I'm gonna say that a lot of the expenses coming from Galaxy Electric and so on is coming back from that lightning strike we had several months ago.
That is
Barry?
correct, yes.
Okay. And, batteries, I presume, were for the equipment out there getting ready for winter? Those
Yeah.
are auto batteries?
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody else? So if not, Do I have a motion, please, to go ahead and approve as presented the October 2021 accounts payable report for a grand total of $46,586.84?
So moved by Don's.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Okay. Lisa, could we have a roll call on that, please?
Sure. Mr. Haw,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson, Mr. Gentili,
yes.
Mr. Suda,
Yes.
Mr. Dance,
Yes.
Ms. Kaminsky, Ms. Goodman. Okay,
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Okay, moving on to the October 2021 revenue expenses report and trial balance sheet report, as well as talking about October's rent and fuel sales. I presume everybody's have seen a copy of that, has had a chance to review it. Any comments, changes, et cetera?
Barry, I know you've talked about this on the PFAS reimbursement, and I know it's probably hard to estimate, but do you have any idea when that money might be coming back through?
Actually, I have the check right here, $50-some thousand check that came in last week, so.
Excellent.
Great.
Andrew, I'm sitting right here and he just held it up, it's real. The only comment I do have on the revenues and expenses, probably it's just, because of the lightning strike and the other things, is that our repairs and maintenance expenditures have chewed up 27% of our budget for 2022 already. I'm sure it'll level out down the road here, but just something I caught my eye.
And we still don't think it's gonna be to the level worthy of an insurance claim?
No, I think pretty much everything, I think we're still waiting on one part to come in, so.
So we'll be good for a while, and just have to kind of keep an eye on that as we move forward. Any other comments? Otherwise, could I have a motion to approve as presented the October 2021 revenues and expenses reports, trial balance sheet, and the fuel and rent reports?
So moved.
Support Don's.
Okay. Lisa, could we have a roll
Yep.
call on that, please?
sure. Ms. Goodman, Ms. Kaminsky, Mr. Dance,
Yes.
Mr. Suda,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson, and Mr. Haw.
Yes. Okay, moving on. Mr. Bonney, I believe we're up for you to present what you're going to present to us today.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate everybody taking a moment to touch base with Cape Air. I'm joined by Matt Reinhardt, who is our Regional Managing Director for the Midwest, and Stacy Shuckhart, who is our Marketing Manager. This is the Cape Air team that is closest to the Midwest and Manistee operation. So you've got the right people on the line here to talk.
Excuse me,
I will
one
tell
minute.
you that very often when we
Wait a
are,
minute.
Andrew, hold on, Jerry wanted to
I was
ask
just
you a
gonna
question.
say, sorry, Andrew, I just was gonna say, I don't know whether you'd prefer to do your whole, spiel here and presentation, or let us interrupt here and there if we have questions. Or
Um,
wait until the end.
yeah, whatever you'd like to do. Why don't you interrupt for now, or given the technology issues, why don't you maybe raise a hand on here, and whether visually or with the icon, and we'll roll.
Okay,
Um,
sounds good. Go ahead.
Cape Air's been privileged to serve Manistee now for just over a year. And very often when I'm doing these year-in touch bases, it's rainbows and unicorns in the background. And that is clearly not the case here. And so first and foremost, I want to acknowledge that right at the beginning. And also say that the Cape Air team is somewhat scratching our own heads on our performance here. What we have delivered for you in Manistee is, first, not what you deserve. It is also not representative of Cape Air as a whole, either in today's operation or historically what we have performed. For example, month to date, Cape Air has canceled for company controllable reasons 10 flights in Manistee. Across our entire system, we've canceled 56 in that time. Manistee is 1.6% of Cape Air's operation, but 18% of our cancellations, which is to say this is totally anomalous. And some of those cancellations have, significant explanatory factors on them. Not so in Manistee, where it really has been either a lack of air crew or aircraft, which is sort of the basic blocking and tackling of community air service. So I'm here to say that I am sorry that we have not delivered the reliability to which you are entitled, and to let you know that our intention is absolutely to get you back up and running at full capacity and full speed, with flights being predictable and reliable. Throughout the year and today and going forward, safety is always number one. So I want you to know that we'll be taking a couple of steps to help ensure the reliability of our service, but always know that if we ever have doubt about the safety of the service, we will cancel the flight. That's the right thing to do. I know you don't want us to operate unsafely. We won't do that anyway. But please know that going forward, safety will remain job one. The cancellations that we've taken recently have been particularly painful because the bookings have been very strong. Looking ahead now for the rest of the month, we're booked to 81% for the rest of the month of November, which is great. With input from Barry and from the marketing team, we've really seized on good shoulder season opportunity here. We've done some fare promotions and it's worked. People in Manistee want to travel, both from Manistee and to, and our connectivity at O'Hare does work. So again, it all comes back to actually then just delivering on the flights, which is a core Cape Air competency. Overall, advanced bookings from today looking forward are 1,181. Again, pretty good for the off season when we're only operating 2 round trips per day per the EAS schedule. To ensure reliability going forward, we will be working on moving some of our training captains on a TDY basis to Manistee so that they will be doing training, the training checks with qualified crew members as part of their regular line service. As you know, the ATPs have required training checks that have to be done by the Cape Air training team on a regular basis. Typically that's done with the training captain and the regular captain just on a regular scheduled flight. What we typically haven't done before is actually had the training captains TDY to a particular station. Leaving that level of senior captain in Manistee, we think will help. One of the problems that we have had with Manistee service so far is that we haven't built yet a cadre of captains who are actually based in Manistee, who are homesteading in Manistee. And very often that takes a while to happen when Cape Air starts a new city. It just hasn't happened yet in Manistee. Why that's important. When you have people who are putting down roots, they become part of the community. They are starting to think long-term about their role in the community, and they're not commuting to and from the community for their shift. One of the cancellations we had in the last week was a pilot who missed his commute into Manistee to pick up the aircraft. That is purely a company controllable cancellation. Of course, our chief pilot's office is addressing that with the individual captain, but that's not your problem. It becomes the passenger's problem, and it shouldn't be. That is a Cape Air problem that we need to fix internally. When you have people who are actually based there, settled down, things really just get reliable. It's a virtuous cycle where it's just day in, day out business. We've not yet gotten there. So as we have senior captains coming out to Manistee to be based there for the checks, we will also work with our pilots union on having the full-time pilots get established up in Manistee. One of the other things that's just the simple geography of where Manistee is relative to the rest of Cape Air's operation is it's a couple hours flight for us. So when we try and back up the operation from our maintenance base in St. Louis, that's a couple hours flight. In the last week, the US DOT has selected Cape Air to serve Burlington, Iowa. That will help us with critical mass of aircraft and crew in the northern tier of our operation, and particularly going in and out of Chicago, which will help us fortify the operation. So that is going to inure to the benefit of reliability for Manistee. In addition, we have started to use more and more of the Cessna 402s while we work with the aircraft manufacturer of Tecnam and the power plant supplier Lycoming on reliability for the aircraft platform. You can imagine that we are addressing with the manufacturer the lack of reliability for a brand new, very expensive airplane that we have invested in significantly. The level of reliability that we are seeing on that aircraft, particularly in Manistee, is not yet where we need it to be, nor where you need it to be. And we are addressing that systemically, again, with safety always at the forefront. So you are seeing more 402s this month than you have in the past. That is allowing us to meet the needs of the customer. In the last week, we've actually been better, not perfect, but better, as we've just gone back to the Cape Air mainstay of the Cessna 402. But that's obviously not going to be the future of Cape Air operating 402s in perpetuity. Today we have 25 Tecnams on property that are on our certificate. We only need like 13 to run the schedule. So we should have extra aircraft for the maintenance reserve, for training, and all the other sort of ancillary things, in addition to operating reliable service for Manistee. And we just simply haven't been able to do that yet. So we are addressing that with the manufacturer. So those are sort of the key points. Aircraft and crew are really driving our performance recently. We are aware of it. We want to fix it, and we are taking steps to do that, provide reliable aircraft, and make sure that we've got crew and some suppleness in our schedule to do that. I might pause at this point to invite Matt. Do you have anything that you want to add, points that I have missed on this?
No, Andrew, I just wanted to interject that our team there in Manistee and Chicago have been working diligently to assist those customers impacted by the cancellations. We will work with multiple carriers to make sure that our customers are making it as close to home as possible, whether it be through Traverse City, Muskegon, Grand Rapids. And then we're working also with the customers to ensure that they have transportation, whether it be reimbursement of their own expenses or rebooking the returns through those airports if necessary, if their car is there. So our teams continue to do what they can to make sure that we are taking our customers to where they want to go, even if our flights are canceled. Obviously not ideal situations, but we are always looking for new options to assist us there in the Manistee market to be able to move customers during irregular operations.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, thanks for adding that. And I guess I want the board to know that one of the constituencies that we are mindful of here is the Cape Air team. When we are not giving them the tools they need to be successful, it puts them in a terrible position as well. And that's not the way we want to take care of our teammates, much less the customers in your community who have an entitlement to reliable service. Stacy, anything you want to add?
I just wanted to say, since I joined Cape Air in June, and kind of getting my legs under me and meeting Barry and Brandon up in Manistee and getting to work with that team up there, I think that we've actually gained a lot of traction on the marketing side. And I feel like our weekly meetings, our bi-weekly meetings that we're having, we're really starting to kind of get into a nice flow on the marketing side with some good promotions and fair sales in Manistee. So I know that on the marketing side, we don't really have any control over the operations, but I feel like we have a really good relationship with Barry and the team up there, and I'm really looking forward to getting things turned around in 2022 and having a really strong year for next year.
Thanks, Stacy. So that's the update from the Cape Air team. I do want you to know that we recognize that the reliability is not where it needs to be. We are focused on getting it where it needs to be. Commercially, the numbers look really good. Stacy and her colleagues in Manistee are doing a good job getting word out. The demand is there. The connectivity works. So it's just a matter of providing the reliability to which the community is entitled. That concludes my presentation. Are there questions?
Well, let me start out. I want to know what, if anything, that we need to improve on our end.
That's very kind to have that be the first question that you're asking right now. I really appreciate that. One of the things that we are talking about internally is housing and helping make housing attractive for people who want a homestead in a Cape Air base at Manistee. We have heard that has been an issue, attracting people who are going to make a real career, at Cape Air and put down roots and get kids in the public school and buy a house. So at some point, and Barry's been a wonderful conduit for the community. Stacy also is working with the Chamber of Commerce. We may be in the real estate market so that we would provide a house and then just make it available, a slam dunk lease for somebody who is coming in. That I think is probably the top of our list for the long-term solution, which is getting crew there who want a homestead. Short-term, the airport's in pretty good shape from a facility standpoint. I think we got the hangar leases figured out. The service we get at the airport is good. So I don't have any particular asks from the airport itself.
Well, I thank you for that. And I also want to thank you for acknowledging the areas of in need of improvement on your end as well. The one thing that I do when I look at Cape Air, and I think you guys overall, I would say it's been a very positive experience. We as a board have wrestled with some questions, some chicken and egg questions, and I think you've helped us answer some of those questions. The catch for me is probably the 9-seater plane. We are not capturing, we might be capturing possibly half to 60% of what we're capable of, maybe. And as long as Cape Air has that as their business model for us, that's going to be my one concern as time goes on. And I think you guys can appreciate that as well. All I'm trying to do is plant a seed of some larger planes.
Sure, I appreciate that. We've spent a lot of time, as you can imagine, looking at larger aircraft. Cape Air now has 98 9-seat aircraft in our fleet. And our answer historically has been to increase frequency instead of upgauging. Specifically in the EAS program, they actually cut the amount of frequencies that you're entitled to, typically. So you lose some connectivity benefit. At a hub like O'Hare, it's maybe tamped down a little bit just because there's so many connecting flights to the major markets. But we have historically grown the company with high frequency 9-seat service. That is constrained in EAS though, because the frequency they give you is the frequency you got. And we're able to flex up in the summer, but I just don't know if in EAS they're going to be able to allow us to significantly increase the number of departures.
Well, then the follow-up question, that I don't want to monopolize this, is with the ridership as high as it is, would it not be profitable for you guys just to run some extra flights?
That's a great question. And the answer is no. We have, as Stacy can tell you, one of the things that we've done is markedly decrease the fare and then promote that. And so what we net off a $59 fare even if you're completely full. I'm not even sure it covers the gas, literally. We need the subsidy behind it. We would need a $270, $300 fare each way, and full load factors in order to cover our expense of a marginal flight.
Thank you.
I was just thinking, when you're talking about getting some of your aircraft or your employees to homestead around here, have you got that in other areas where you have your operations going on?
Absolutely, across the entire Cape Air system. That is what happens. It just hasn't happened yet at Manistee. I don't know why. Some of it is simply luck. Very often when Cape Air opens a new city, nobody wants to go there just because it's new and nobody's from there yet. And then it goes very junior in the bid. Our pilots are represented by the Teamsters, so we have an orderly union bidding process for by seniority for who gets which base. After a community goes very junior, the first bid, maybe 2 bids, then it goes very senior when people figure out, the virtues of that community, or people who started out there decide they like it and make a home there. That just hasn't happened yet in Manistee. We've had significant turnover in the pilot cadre that have been based in Manistee. Just bad luck.
So you mentioned something else I was thinking about, where you got a lot of pilot turnover. Are you doing something to address that? Have you lost some of your capacity to fly aircraft because you've lost pilots? Because they've gotten the hours to move on to the next stage in their career?
Sure. So Cape Air has a very organized program to create pilots for ourselves. So we're doing okay on pilots. I wouldn't say we've got, more pilots than we need. We don't, but we're doing okay on pilots and have a very organized program to grow our own captains here at Cape Air. That being said, this is in the context of a nationwide and very accelerating pilot shortage. So captains at Cape Air who have wanted to progress out now have the opportunity to do that. And we have seen that happen. I think maybe even with some of the pilots who have been based at Manistee. And that just means that, so we then backfill with one of our captains who's upgrading, but it may be then that it's not, that captain may have been hoping to get to the Caribbean or to Montana or somewhere else and just doesn't have the seniority to do that yet. So as soon as there's that vacancy, then they will move on. So we just haven't had somebody really want to homestead yet in Manistee. And again, it's just a matter of having the stars align. I also, this morning, discussed with the president of Cape Air, Linda Markham, about doing ATP recruiting in Western Michigan. We would love to find local people who have an ATP, maybe retirees of Northwest or Delta, who have a zip code up in that area, who would be interested in flying for Cape Air and be based in Western Michigan, and that's home. That's a great way to do it as well. Usually takes a little longer to find people like that, but we have enough ATPs at Cape Air right now. And it looks like, sorry.
I was just thinking, when you're talking about Western Michigan and so on, Western Michigan University has got one of the major flight instruction training schools in the Midwest here.
Yep.
Have you perhaps contacted them at times or thought about doing that for maybe possible potential pilots, et cetera, and so on?
We have, and our pilot recruiters have participated in their career days over time. Going forward, Cape Air will be more and more closely aligned with the Republic Airways Lift Academy, which is a organized professional airline pilot training program run by Republic Airways, which is now a significant shareholder in Cape Air. And that's going to provide us a predictable flow of pilots going forward. It's one of the reasons that we're not that concerned about the overall pilot counts, is because we're now partners with Republic Airways on their flow program. So we have a pretty organized way of getting new pilots. Now, not necessarily folks from Western Michigan. So as we do probably a postcard mailing, because we can get the mailing addresses of those ATPs in Western Michigan, that will probably be a new source of pilots for us. And I see a hand up for Andrew G.
Thank you. Much like Mr. Don said, I greatly appreciate that you took the time to come on this call and kind of hat in hand and acknowledge what everybody's kind of going through, not just in your industry, but throughout the country right now with labor shortages and dealing with a lot of these guest service issues. While the ATP may sound like it's going to take longer, as somebody that has been trying to recruit for 4.5 years in this market, it's very difficult to get the younger generation to really want to stay in this market. So the ATP might be a better path for you. The other thing, which if there are things that sounds like the chairman knows more about Western Michigan University's program, I actually have a couple team members here that while they're working here, their goal is to become pilots. So maybe if there's something that we can do to try and get them some paperwork so I could pass it along to them, because they actually grew up here, they might be willing to stay here. This is where this is home to them. But I don't know that we do a good job of publishing to people in the community what kind of great career that could be and how to get them into that career.
Andrew, I would love to follow up with you on that.
And then the other thing is, and again, 100% acknowledgement that you guys are fighting through a new process here, and everybody's hurting for team members and personnel right now. But how do we fix some of the communication issues? As somebody that's flown through there twice and did not like either experience, there seems to be a communication gap between your systems and the code share partners, whether it's American or United, as to if a flight's canceled, how does that get rebooked? And I most recently had a bad situation where I booked through United, and it just seemed impossible to rebook because I didn't book through Cape Air.
Yeah, Matt, I might lateral to you in a minute for the mechanics of the UA rebooking, but Andrew, the first and foremost thing is we just need to operate the flights on time, so that it doesn't even happen in the first place. That is the vast majority of the flying that we do. Is it just operates like clockwork, and we don't have conference calls like this where we're apologizing to airport boards. This is totally anomalous, and it's generally not an issue, and that's the real solution to what you're talking about. Matt, can you talk a little bit about the reaccom process or the rebooking process?
Sure, Andrew. I had the opportunity to hear some of your comments on the last board meeting, and I wanted to just discuss some of those items that you presented. The first is just the wayfinding in Chicago. As far as our presence on the FIDS boards there at the airport. With our code share partner there, American Airlines, we do have a presence on not only the bank of boards that's really only in the L concourse for those carriers other than United and American, but we're also on American's boards for all of our flights there at Chicago. So American takes up, probably a third of O'Hare. United is a situation where we don't have a good presence in that part of the airport. And we have worked and approached United about being added to their FIDS boards there. And the response was, at least at this point in time, no. Part of that's just due to the relationship. We have an interline agreement with United, not a code share. And because we don't have that code share agreement in place at O'Hare, that is limiting our presence on those boards. However, when it comes to reaccommodation with United, if you are booked on one ticket, if your itinerary is all on one ticket with the United itinerary, reaccom should be a fairly smooth process. Now, I know that's not what you encountered. I know that you had actually approached United in regards to your flight, and they didn't have good information for you at that point in time. That could be the point in time in which we were at in the process of canceling that flight. All actions with our partner carriers are driven by our own actions at our SOC. And once that flight is canceled in our system, it does go out to our partner carriers. So they should have the same information that Cape Air has if that cancellation has taken place in the system. Sometimes there are delays to that, and I can't speak to your specific incident, but
Yeah, hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew, on that specific day, the Cape Air team, because of our reliability issues in Manistee, was working really hard to pull a rabbit from a hat and get another airplane from St. Louis back into the field to try and save the day. We were not able to do it, but that was one of the reasons that on your particular day, that things were slow and we hadn't already processed the cancellation already, which I realized actually made things worse for you. We were trying to make them better, but we were delaying actually canceling the flight, trying to pull a rabbit from a hat.
No, and I give your team credit. They got me home. They got creative. So, hey, all kudos for that. I guess the frustrating part for me was United kept telling me the flight wasn't canceled. I already had emails from you guys saying the flight was canceled. So United wouldn't rebook me. So then I got a message saying, well, I couldn't go to your website because I didn't book it for you guys, but I could call this number. So I called that number while I was sitting in O'Hare, and they said, well, they couldn't rebook it for me either. I had to wait for the ticket counter to open. And to me, that just seemed very frustrating. It's like, well, you guys don't open the ticket counter until a half hour before departure. So now I'm not going to find out until last minute whether I could get on that plane or not, versus I could just go rent a car and drive home faster.
Yeah, and Andrew, and I'm sorry that occurred. In most cases, our agents are able to rebook on the spot, both at the gate and counter onto new flights, whether it be Cape Air flights or partner carrier flights. Our crews there in Chicago and Manistee have all been trained to be able to do that. Under most circumstances, if we're dealing with two distinct separate tickets, that limits our ability to change downline flights with our partner carriers. And sometimes that does occur. I know that once you got to the gate, they were able to get you on the aircraft. I know that it was a kind of a last minute notification. I do believe you were the last customer on that flight. And I think they were simply looking at the overall weight on that particular aircraft, which is why you probably didn't know until very close to flight time. So I appreciate and welcome any additional input that you have as you travel on us, Andrew. This is always a process that we try to dissect where we could do better. I think is going back to what Andrew Bonney at Cape Air said, the easiest solution is to operate our flights.
All right. Well, are there further questions?
Not for me. Anybody else?
I guess I'll ask one, and just because this was a topic early on last year and hasn't been really talked about much since, just because other things have been more important. But, and again, it really focuses more back onto the technims, which, for obvious reasons are not being utilized as heavily right now. But where does your efforts to get up to a weight carrying capacity on those aircraft so that they could possibly start carrying 9 passengers stand?
Sure. So there's two things on that. First is on the aircraft itself. The diet, if you will, on the aircraft is a ongoing process for TechDam all the way back to the factory. As we are looking at switching between air conditioning season and de-ice season, there's an opportunity to actually take some of the hardware off and have a program around that. TechDam just hasn't yet delivered that program, but we do expect that we know that's coming. We've asked them just to focus on reliability right now, first things first. So that's with regard to the hardware. Then there's software. Cape Air is developing a proprietary software widget for a booking engine where we will, on our own website or channels we control, be able to take estimated weights for the customers and their bags in advance of the flight. For customers that book through a third-party channel where we don't have the opportunity to ask their weights, we will be able to take pretty detailed demographic data because we have their gender and their date of birth and the route that they're flying on, and have pretty good estimates on what the booked weight for the flight is going to be. And that will allow us to dynamically change flights. So let's say that you get a linebacker that books and, he's going to weigh, 350 pounds. We'll be able to deduct a seat from the authorized number of selling seats. And then let's say you've got a family of 5 with 3 small children. Now you're going to be able to actually open up an incremental seat because you know that the children are going to be light. So that's actually in work right now. Barry, that has been something that was in the queue. It's actually being worked on and developed right now.
Thanks for that update.
That's quite a work. That's quite interesting if that ever gets to working. It should get working though.
We've done some beta testing with a dumb version of it, where we're manually plugging in the data to see how it will work, and it's pretty slick. We're very excited about it for 2 reasons. One, we'll be able to get the 9th seat open when we can. It's incremental revenue on a flight that's going already. And the other thing is, if we have big people or a lot of bags get booked early on, we'll be able to tamp down the AU, and we just won't bump customers or their bags. It'll give us much better reliability from a customer service standpoint. Nobody likes to arrive at an airport without their bag, and this will really, I think, help us prevent that.
Good. Okay. Any other questions from anybody?
Yeah, I've got a follow-up for you, and that is in regard to flying into O'Hare. Keeping in mind flying from Manistee going to O'Hare as opposed to another regional facility, whether it be Detroit, Minneapolis, maybe Indianapolis, I don't know. Just posing the question, is O'Hare, in your professional opinion, marketing aside, a great fit for what we are trying to accomplish?
Short answer, yes. Before joining Cape Air, I worked at United Airlines in their international route strategy group at the headquarters in Chicago. So I'm intimately familiar with the Chicago market specifically. It is just about the best global gateway that there is, in addition to being a large local market. You have both American and United competing for market share, and then Southwest at the neighboring airport actually helping to keep fares down for the local market. You have just a huge variety of nonstop destinations available from O'Hare that you basically can't get anywhere else. The only comparable airport would be Atlanta, but that's dominated by a single carrier, Delta. So you're actually better off having United and American compete against each other at Chicago O'Hare. The biggest issue I see at O'Hare is that they are very reluctant to let us land on the crosswind runway because they have so much flow, and that does cause us problems when the winds exceed our crosswind limitation. We have some exotic thoughts about how we could possibly solve for that in a safe way that we are continuing to work through and try and build internal constituency for doing that, possibly by intentionally diverting to a neighboring general aviation airport and then ground transporting the rest of the way to and from, rather than having to cancel when we just simply can't get into the airport. But more on that. That's still in the Andrew Bonney hope category instead of in the actual ready for deployment.
Well, I know that Detroit, the old McNamara terminal, I believe has been renovated. And I've asked the question, I don't know if there's any public transportation between the old terminal and the new terminal, but volume in Detroit certainly is a heck of a lot less than it is at O'Hare. And that's always seems to be the hiccup. And then when you got the crosswind issue that comes into play as well, it complicates it even more.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword though, right? You want that connectivity, you want the volume because that's what you're connecting onto, but at the same time, you don't want the operational hassles of it. So it cuts both ways.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew, Matt, Stacy.
You're
Very
welcome, and
good.
thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time. I really appreciate it, and we'll be in touch with Barry on a regular basis, so please continue to pass information that way, and I can always be reached directly as well. Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Everybody all set?
I think so.
Okay, moving on. Committee reports, no executive committee this past month, no budget committee, nor any capital projects committee this past month. And,
Could
Barry,
I
go
make a
ahead.
request
Go
that
ahead.
the capital projects committee plan a meeting sometime soon?
And,
We need to figure out a plan for the hangars,
okay,
and
I saw some report expenses to do something on the hangars in the expense reports.
so, it's just, if we start discussing it now, because pretty soon, spring will be here, and we're working on next
Okay.
year's budget, and we really need to have a plan before that budget cycle.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and check things out and put something in the airwaves there for a potential meeting and go from there. And try to get one lined up before this month is out. Yeah,
I'd be happy before the year is out.
okay, well, in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Yep.
Let's
Yep.
do that, okay. Okay, Barry, you're up.
Okay,
Got
those
your
that
handout?
are here, we'll hand out copies, and then I will,
Got it?
pardon me for a second as I bring up.
Barry, while you're bringing that up, I just want to remind, I have to jump off at 1 for a Zoom meeting. with
Yep.
Tribal Council, so I didn't know if that was, if you guys still had a forum, or if I was gonna mess you guys up.
Andrew, were you talking to the group here?
He needs to jump off at 1, he has another
Oh,
meeting.
okay. Andrew, I know you're on the capital projects committee. I'll get in touch with you and Phil also. And we'll pick out a couple of dates and we'll try to get together here at the airport for an hour or so to pick that around.
All right, yeah, I'm out this weekend, down in Tennessee. And then to either right before Thanksgiving or the week after works for me.
Okay, I'll set up a couple of dates for us and, you guys, we can pick and choose and go from there. Sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
Okay.
I am having a hard time here, I'll have to do it this way then.
Probably didn't grease the wheels this morning.
Okay, start off with no accidents or incidents to report for the month.
Good.
So talking about, performance and enplanement numbers. So you'll see from the enplanement numbers that, we did 961 passengers total, last month. That's total passengers. And that is our second best, October ever, surpassing, I think it's in the following slide, I think it was 2017 was our previous second best. So that's 2 months in a row now where we've basically been surpassing historic numbers by a significant percentage or amount. With the exception of we're still about half of where we were with Frontier, and I think Jeff's comment earlier about us fulfilling about 50% of our potential, really that attests to where we are in that broader perspective. And as Andrew Bonney was mentioning, their issues are are these operational issues with crew, mechanical issues with the aircraft, and then going over into some of the weather-related issues of getting into O'Hare. If we didn't have those in place and we were just looking at these numbers, we'd be like ecstatically happy because, you know, we're doing better than roughly 59 out of the last 60 years of service here. But that's not the case, and those negative issues are tainting what is otherwise working very well. And then, you know, kind of flipping then over to that performance side, feel the number that Andrew Bonney gave was around 10%. You know, my calculation, which includes all cancellations, airlines typically focus only on what they call controllable, which are their fault, as opposed to cancellations that are for other reasons, weather. I report total because it's all part of the perception of the quality of our service. So, you know, we had 13% of flights in October canceled. November is not doing any better. The last week has been better, but November started off rough for a few days early in that first week, which is going to impact kind of the total numbers for the month. So
Barry, is Cape Air still online?
they may be, I don't know. I don't really have a
Oh, okay.
a good way right now of flipping through who's still on the call. I'm in the middle of presenting, so.
They're not listed as being a participant any longer.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Barry,
you'll see.
Barry, if I can interrupt you real quick, I did want to mention, so we had some people go out to a conference and they actually flew through Manistee last week. And the one gentleman's a bigger guy. He was not too thrilled with the Cessna.
I would understand that because they're not a very big plane,
Yep. So,
right?
so you'll see we've got really 3 months now in a row of, you know, performance issues with the cancellation rate, which is abnormally high. That will translate into 4 months in a row once the November numbers are finalized. You know, quite frankly, Cape Air has to fix this, and sooner rather than later, because in another 4 or 5 months, you know, the next round of bids will come out for our next round of EAS contracts, and this will be an issue if they don't get it addressed soon. I mean, it already is an issue, but it has longer-term repercussions if they're not able to address it. But again, if it weren't for these very basic issues, which again, Andrew Bonney, you know, indicated are abnormal from the rest of their system for whatever reason, everything else is working really well. The connectivity works, O'Hare works. When it works, it is exactly what we've been looking for the last 10 years. But when it doesn't matter.
Right.
Then looking on airfares. So again, this is where we get into that area of, you know, things working or not working. So from a base fare standpoint, this month was interesting because in every one of these 20 markets, Grand Rapids was the lowest fare. But the fare difference isn't that much overall. We're still second of these 4 airports, of our surrounding airports, from an average standpoint. And are competitive even on just kind of this raw fare perspective. But then when you look at with parking added, we become, because that difference isn't that much, we become the low fare plus parking in 17 of the 20. So again, that convenience, free parking, drive 2 hours to get to Grand Rapids. From a fare standpoint, with connectivity on American United, this is ideal. I mean, this is great to be where we are, which shows why Andrew said for the rest of the month, we're currently booked at 81%. What I see is that over half of our flights, and I mentioned this later as well, over half of our flights are now sold out. I mean, we are filling planes when they fly. Or I should say Cape Air is filling planes, but.
Oh, that's been the case for a while now, so that's good.
Yes.
It's just, we're having those other problems.
But it is, I'm somewhat surprised because, you know, from basically the end of October until Thanksgiving, this kind of 3-week window, it's usually a no man's land for flying because, you know, the reasons for people to come up to northern Michigan ended when the leaves fell off the trees, and people, again, aren't really thinking of flying until Thanksgiving. You know, there's this 3-week window in early November and a 2-week window in early December that are usually really poor, and even in this window, half of these flights are sold out.
Times are changing, and it's all due to the casino.
So that's kind of a snapshot on airfares. Moving on to other things, so I haven't touched base with Sheriff Gutowski, although he has reached out to me. We just haven't connected to kind of close in on this LEO coverage that's kind of been hanging out there for a while now. Manistee Township, they had a public hearing for their master plan last week, but because they moved the date from their normal, which is normally a Thursday night meeting, to Tuesday night last week, I got my calendar screwed up, so I didn't attend. Jeff, were you there for that meeting? And was there any discussion on that?
Well, I was there, but due to it being on a Tuesday night, I was there, gave my spiel, and I vacated, which usually I sit there for the whole meeting, but that meeting I did not, so I don't have an answer for you.
Okay. So all I know is that was planned, that public hearing, and I just don't know what the outcome was. I'm not anticipating that there was much comment. I don't know if the plan was at the regular meeting after the public hearing for the board to approve it or not. So I'll get that information for you for next month.
They must have some minutes or something of the meeting, right?
Right, yep.
Oh, okay.
I have not heard anything recently from either consumers or the electrical contractor on the meter update. But as far as I know, they're working together on that. Oh, Phil, do you have an update?
Not really. I was here probably Monday or Tuesday of last week, and I did talk with a guy from Consumers Power that was there, and he looked it over. So that is in the works.
Okay, so it is moving. It's just the fact I haven't heard anything is not a problem. Good.
Okay,
Thanks.
good.
And then one little minor thing here is just from an overall services at the airport. Orchard Beach Aviation acquired last week a de-icing unit. So we are now able to offer de-icing services to general aviation aircraft. It's always been something that's been kind of iffy because the airline has always had de-icing equipment, and depending on the carrier, they were happy to provide that service to general aviation aircraft, or not so. And Cape Air, for liability reasons, has just not wanted to do that.
Okay.
And last winter, we actually had a good number of requests for that service and not an ability to fulfill that with Cape Air's equipment. And Ludington was selling their equipment,
I
so
was gonna ask whether you got a
Orchard
new
Beach
unit or
purchased
a
it, so,
reconditioned one.
yep. So that is now here.
Good.
We still need training on it, but that is something that we will be able to add, and hopefully that means we'll have a few more general aviation flights that'll be able to come in during the winter.
Well, that might be a nice little backup for Cape Air too sometime,
And, yep, that's,
if theirs takes a dump.
on the federal stimulus level, so round two, we finally got the paperwork for that last week. Our portion of that, funding will be $13,000, and Susan is pulling together the invoices necessary to get that reimbursement, process started. So that is happening, and the state still has not, state legislature has not done the steps they need to move the third round of funding forward. And our portion of the third round of funding is higher. I want to say it's around $30,000. I don't recall the exact number right now. So we do have these funds that were not budgeted coming in. Obviously, the first 13 will be in this fiscal year, and given where we are in the year, I would expect the last part to also come in this fiscal year, which again is why getting the capital projects committee to meet, we do have dollars now that are there that are above and beyond our budget that potentially could be discussed. So I mentioned, I think, the last two meetings where we were with items that came out of our airport inspection with the FAA this year. As I'd mentioned last month, the tree and brush clearing inside the runway safety area had been completed by the end of September, per the deadline in that compliance letter. There was a second set of tree clearing that needed to be completed by the end of October, and that was completed. And then the third item was basically the FAA wanted our plans for regrading and bringing to standard the basically slope and terrain of our runway safety area. And Prina Newhoff put together that plan, and that was submitted to the FAA. So from my perspective, all the items have been addressed. I haven't heard back from the FAA as to whether or not they have any feedback or if they want additional information on anything.
One question.
Yes.
The grading plans that Newhoff submitted, was that significant or, I mean,
It's about $1
large
million
Okay,
worth
okay.
of work.
work? Okay.
And when you do grading, about half of the dollars are actually in moving the dirt around, and the other half are the reseeding and restoration of,
Which
so-
is tore up.
especially because we've got such sandy soil, it tends to blow around and not really grow back very effectively if you don't really actively restore it. And, you know, it's very interesting, and I think this is maybe part of the reason I'm speculating here why we haven't heard back from the FAA is this type of item is generally a high priority for the FAA. It's in some ways an embarrassment for everybody, us, our engineer, the FAA, that these issues haven't been addressed or even noticed for over a decade.
Okay.
And now when they're noticed and and it's a big project, it's like, how does that get handled from a funding perspective, et cetera. So I think there's probably some interesting conversations happening within the FAA to allow this to get addressed from a funding perspective, as well as a time frame that is probably going to be faster than otherwise would happen, because it's the type of thing that the FAA considers important. Now, you might ask, why are we in this situation? Well, since the runway was constructed in '98, the standards have changed. So what was acceptable back then, 20-some years ago, is now no longer the standard. And that's part of the reason no one noticed, is a recognition of that change in standard just didn't sink in until this year's inspection. So that's kind of where that stands.
Thank you.
So the airport layout plan update, I'm expecting the draft of that from Prina Newhoff next month. The timeline is that they're expecting to submit it to the state in January or February, hoping to get the state's approval of it March, April, so that it can then be finalized, and then we can move on with subsequent projects. Because the current airport layout plan is now over 20 years old, any future projects we do are basically dependent on this update. So until this gets completed, any future projects aren't going to happen. So it's important, but that's kind of roughly the time frame that I'm hearing from Prina Newhoff. On the PFAS testing, as I mentioned earlier, we've got the check for the first reimbursement on that, which are essentially our expenses in the last fiscal year. I've been told the phase 2 work is scheduled for November. I haven't been given an exact date on that yet, so I'm expecting to get a call very soon. And that grant needs to be closed out by April, so everyone's really incentivized to get this done before the dead of winter so that it can be reimbursed before the grant ends. I'm not sure there's anything on the Cape Air service that hadn't either been already covered in Cape Air's discussion earlier,
Right.
or when I talked over things earlier. But I do want to kind of point out, again, I mentioned this, but, looking at the raw numbers, so, 962 total passengers last month in October. From recent years, 2017, 757, that's like a 20, almost 30%, 25 to 30% improvement over our recent best. Again, Cape Air is working, the connectivity works. We've demonstrated that the combination of fares, connectivity does do what we need it to do. We just have to have them be reliable on the performance side. I'm expecting, given we're halfway through November and given how many passengers we've already enplaned, looking at the loads for the rest of the month, that November will continue this kind of pattern, September, October, November, where we've surpassed all recent previous years and are only trailing that 1 year of 2011 with Frontier. And, barring anything changing significantly, December should fall in line with that, January, et cetera. So we could really have a number of months here where we're breaking these records. So going on to marketing, so at our call last week, we started a conversation with Cape Air about doing a winter solstice fair sale, so kind of that 21st of December, of having a fair sale for travel January through March, basically the core winter months. We've done this in the past with varying degrees of success with public charters. We did it last year as well, but last year we were kind of, with COVID, not a lot of people were traveling at that point of time just because of where things were with the disease and the pandemic. So we haven't finalized everything, but we're looking to do that again. And I was talking with Brandon Jensen, Right Side Design, this morning. He is planning on being here next month to give the board an update of basically the marketing plan for the fiscal year that we're now 2 months into.
Sure.
We're a little bit behind on that, but he should be here next month. And that is the end of my report.
You know, Barry, I think probably those $59 seats is making some of that difference for this month and December, hopefully, and October.
Yep. And
I'm coming back from what Andrew said on a little
mhm.
discussion there, where he says they're not making anything on it, they're just barely paying for the gas, if they're paying for the gas, or the fuel. But they also get the other stuff from the government, so.
Right.
Right. So if they weren't getting that, they wouldn't be flying with us.
9-seat aircraft are not profitable with low fares.
Okay.
The operating costs, you still got the same number of pilots for a 9-seat aircraft as you do for a 50-seat aircraft, and even 50-seat aircraft nowadays, the major airlines are phasing out for 70-seat. So from just an overall cost structure, it's very challenging to operate smaller aircraft profitably without the EAS subsidy.
Right. And a small aircraft is not very profitable. It's hard to be profitable in a big market also, for the same reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah. Where a small aircraft can work profitably is on very short hops. So you look at Charlevoix over to Beaver Island, where it's, it's a very short hop, versus our plus hop. You can get a lot more in a day for the same amount of fixed assets. And, some of Cape Air's for-profit, non-subsidized routes out of New England are kind of those short island hop routes, kind of that same model, or, even the Caribbean. So.
Well, that's where their business kind of started from, doing that stuff.
And it's still,
Right.
about half of their business is EAS and the other half is for-profit, unsubsidized, so.
Okay. Thank you, Barry. Any other questions of Barry's report, to Barry for his report? If not, we'll move on to old business, unfinished business. I'm not aware of either one of those, unless somebody has something that I'm not aware of. New business, the only thing we mentioned already is probably trying to get something lined up with the Capital Projects Committee. And down to comments by board members. Any comments? We're all set?
I do have a comment.
Go ahead.
In regards next month's meeting, I will be on a cruise in the Caribbean.
So you're gonna phone in, Zoom into us?
I'm
just
not gonna, I possibly could, but I'm not gonna commit to that. So if you want me to attend next month's meeting, I would recommend that we move the date. But if you want to keep the dates, then I just will have to tell you that I will not be able to attend next month.
So,
The scheduled meeting is the 20th, Monday, the 20th.
correct.
So, yeah, I think it would make sense to move it up a week to the 13th, if that works for the board. If not, again, we can keep it, it's just, I won't be able to attend.
I don't think we have enough board members here to take a vote on it anymore, do we?
Probably not, no.
So I've got no problem moving to the 13th. How about you, Phil?
No, I don't have a problem with that.
Jeff, how about you?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so let's go ahead and make a decision and just go ahead and do it and let the other folks know. I think that might help them out a little bit in terms of Christmas and so on.
The 20th is getting kind of
Right,
late for,
Right, so I think everybody,
anyway, but.
I don't think we'll have a problem with that. So
Let me ask Lisa here to make sure, we don't do something incorrectly. Are we gonna need, how should we address this, Lisa?
I would just send out an email to the entire group, just confirming that date. I was just looking to make sure we had nothing going on here that would conflict with
Right.
commissioners, but I don't see anything. I would just send an email to the entire group. If that is something that I do, I can surely send that out today just to make sure everyone, can attend.
You go ahead and do that,
Okay,
right? And if we do have some problems, we'll get it addressed ahead of time.
right. So December 13th at noon.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sure out of the group, one won't be
Right.
satisfactory, one at least.
Well, as long as you have a quorum.
Right, right. Okay. Okay. Any other new business or comments by members? If not, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much and have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.